What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to go ahead and break down 3 stocks that I went ahead and bought this recent dip on with some longer dated options and sort of break down the technicals and give you my reasoning as to why I've made these moves. Now, before we jump deeper into this video, I want to make something very clear. These dip buys that I have taken are stocks and trades that require time. These are not trades that I recommend you go buy tomorrow expiration options after watching today's video. These are long dated, I believe, trades that need a lot of patience to get the move back higher. Now, a lot of the reason has to do with the DeepSeek drop that you guys are all very familiar with on the market, where a lot of things fully recovered, including the overall market, but the SMH, the semiconductor sector, has yet to come back strong. Now, of course, the SMH and semiconductors were the main thing that got hit and still really the question mark from this large drop, but I just can't help but think there is opportunity here, and I want to go ahead and break down how I've taken this opportunity and, of course, show you how it could work, where it breaks down, give you those parameters, and give you an idea of my mindset here. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Of course, always trade with your own risk and risk that you're comfortable with. These are, again, are trades that will not be overnight trades, right? These are trades that I think could take weeks to months to come back, but ultimately, I believe there's opportunity here, and when opportunity is there, I like to take it. So today, let's go ahead and break down those 3 stocks, and one honorable mention that I will mention in today's video that I'm not personally exposed in, but something I am watching to potentially get into. Press that like button, subscribe to the channel. Let's go ahead and jump into it. So guys, number 1, and I think actually the top opportunity for me as of right now, that is GE Vernova, GEV. And if you guys aren't familiar with this company, it's basically the energy producer behind all of the semiconductor innovation, right? That's the easiest way I can explain it. It's energy, the energy behind it all. And a very hot stock, has been a hot stock for a very long time, and gapped down a monster amount, almost about 22 to 20% on that DeepSeek news, which to me just doesn't quite make sense that we would be dropping 20% on this stock on that news. Obviously, there will still be a requirement for this energy, for the juice that runs all this innovation. And I think right now there is a monster gap fill opportunity that's already sort of underway. We're already part of this trade, and if you're part of the group, you know that, and it's working out beautifully. Today was a great day for it. But let me go ahead and show you why I think there is still some opportunity left and why I would be paying attention to this stock moving forward, and maybe more opportunity even past this gap fill. So let's go ahead and get the levels on the chart. So you guys can see right here, here are some levels that I have mapped out. The first thing I want to point out, guys, is where this stock dropped into, right? And this stock dropped right into this flat bottom around $315 per share, where we saw a very strong consolidation from around November to December, right? So a month of consolidation right here back into this 315 low. Now, this 315 low, guess what? When we dropped into it on that gap down, look where it was meeting up with. The daily 100 SMA. That I love. I love when stocks drop aggressively back into their major SMAs, which also align with a key demand. And you can see that on that day, we saw a hold, right, above that 100 SMA. The following day, a major wick back to the upside. A lot of buyers stepping back in at that 315, major low aligning with the 100 SMA. Now, what I was sort of waiting for to get very confident on taking this trade was a reclaim back above these channel highs, right? So we had the channel low right here, which we held, but we still had to get a reclaim above this channel high, right? So we had the channel high, channel high, channel high. That was around $350 per share. Now, we can also see at that channel high, we had these previous lows right here. So originally, we had a beautiful break and retest long that sort of set up there on GEV. But right here yesterday, we saw a reclaim above that 350 level. So let me go ahead and now break this down on the 4-hour chart. You can see right here on the 4-hour chart, diving down with a little bit more detail, we have a very clear reclaim back above that channel high, which turned into a low right here, right? And right here, just yesterday, we went ahead and reclaimed that level. We reclaimed that 350, and we also reclaimed the daily 50 SMA. Beautiful how that all set up. Awesome, right? So I really like how GEV has defended that major consolidation zone. Buyers stepped up on that big drop near the 100 SMA, and we're starting to get that move back to the upside. Now, if we go back to the daily chart and we go back to the blank chart, we can see there is still the gap possibility up to around the low of this candle, which is around $416 per share. So currently trading at $381, there's still about 35 points to the upside that we could take before we fully fill that gap down from around the $415 per share level. Now, let me go ahead and drop this down onto the hourly chart and show you what I would be looking for to see if this can continue. Now, looking at this hourly chart, we can see a very nice reclaim of that 350. Let's go ahead and zoom in just for a second, just on that 350 reclaim. Look at how well that previous rejection point turned into support all day here on Wednesday, right? Buyers defending that 350 on a break and retest hold, and right back above that daily 50 SMA. That is great. Now, the next level we needed to get above to really confirm that there could be more was a break over this high. This was at 370, and we can see that was also the rejection on Wednesday yesterday. Now, today, we can see that 370 perfectly, and I mean perfectly, turned into support. Right here, we have a rejection from yesterday on Wednesday, and today intraday, we see a perfect low of day defend right at that 370 level. So we can clearly see that GEV is starting to develop the stair-stepping upside, right? We are reclaiming previous levels. We are starting to stair-step to the upside. So far, so good. Now, what we're going to need to get the full gap fill, in my opinion, is a break over this 390 low right here. We can see 390, 390, and a 390 wick right there. And that is where we went ahead and topped out today around that 390 level. So I'm making this video to let you know that there could be more here towards that 415 gap fill, but there's a proper entry that I would look for. Right now, I would anticipate that there could be some rejections at that 390 level, and the right entry from this point is a pullback to that 370, right? And look for that previous high right here to turn into new lows. Look for this structure to start to build where this structure was right here, right? These structure highs around 370, look for that to turn into a low, and look for that higher low formation to continue. Here's a low, here's a higher low. Now you want a higher low right here at that 370 level. If we can see that build over the next coming days to weeks, that would give me the idea that we could break that 390, and then you would look for that hold above 390 and your continuation into the full gap fill. Number one, I love the technical setup for the gap fill to start. I love that hold down here. I love the 100 SMA demand stepping up and the possibility of that 390 hold. But on top of that, I just love that this is a strong name, a strong company, historically has been a fantastic buy, and I think this 22% drop is for sure a buying opportunity. I would obviously still focus on your entry points, and in my opinion, the next best entry point is back here at $370. Look for that pullback, look to develop that long, and see if that can get you the push into 390 and possibly higher. Now, of course, if this does break down back under 370, your next entry point would be back down at this 350, right? So if we do fail that 370, look for that consolidation back here at 350 to potentially give you an even better buying opportunity back at that major demand. That's the first trade. That's a trade that I'm currently in. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one, and that is Broadcom. Now, Broadcom, a semiconductor, right, a hot semiconductor that's been a little bit messy, right, on the chart, and there is a somewhat concerning thing that I will point out before this really gets going, right? I'm going to give you sort of that prerequisite of what I think needs to happen to really get this going, but for now, I think this is absolutely something to pay attention to. Number one, let's go to the weekly chart. On the weekly chart, and we go to this blank chart, we can see that on the weekly chart, we had a major gap up or a major move higher on earnings. We saw a lot of consolidation, and we had that recent gap down on the DeepSeek news. Now, in a perfect world, I would have loved to get Broadcom back to that 185. And could it still come back to that 185 for an even better retest long? Yes, I think that is possible. So you could say, hey, Desi, I don't like that one. I'm going to wait for that 185, and I would not disagree with you there. Now, the reason I am interested in Broadcom as of right now is because of the reclaim back above this candle low. So that candle low was the low from the previous earnings, right? And so what we can see, the low of this candle was 211.11. Let me go ahead and put a line right at that level. 211.11 is the low that formulated right after that earnings gap up. And what we can see here, we saw previous rejections under that level over the last few days. Let me go into the hourly chart. We can see on Monday, we failed that level and dropped lower. On Tuesday, we rejected that 211.11, failed lower. On Wednesday, yesterday, we failed that level, dropped lower, right? So we couldn't get above that 211.11 level. And again, let me make sure you know what level that is. That is the low of this candle. So we saw the market fail and start to turn this low right here into a rejection. So I stayed out of the trade. However, just today, we saw, or yesterday, end of day into today, we saw Broadcom reclaim that spot, right? And I'm interested to see, does Broadcom now turn that 211.11 into a new low? And if that is the case, I think you can formulate a long entry using that level as your guide. The other thing that I'm sort of seeing here on Broadcom is this higher low formation that continues to build higher. We have this low here, a higher low, and I think as long as you can maintain above that 211.11, there is a very valid trade idea here using the 50 SMA as a potential guide, but ultimately I would want to see it stay above that 211.11. Now, it's okay for now. It's not a great, real-time move yet. It still seems a little bit heavy, and obviously, like I said in the beginning of the video, you're going to need some more to get this really going. 220 is where I think you really need Broadcom to get back above. We can see here on the 4-hour chart, we have some major previous lows at 220, this major low right around 220, and today we did see those rejections step back in right around that 220 level, which is also a major high from right here. So what I would look for, guys, there's two ways to play this. I would look for a hold back above 220 to give you a better long with higher probability, right? I would look for that hold above 220 and hold above this high here to really get that move starting to go, right? And get a move back into that 230 level and that daily 20 SMA. Either that or you can look to long the 211 area, understand that there could be some chop within this zone, and wait patiently for this low to get you that breakout over 220. There's two ways to play it, right? You can either long the 211 or wait for the break over 220. Regardless, I think you want to monitor Broadcom in this 10-point zone and see if it can start to work its way back. Again, I want to go ahead and preface, there is a gap to fill above. That's why I'm interested. If Broadcom can get over that 220, you'll probably get into that 20 SMA. The gap to fill is all the way up into the 240s, so there could be some opportunity here, right, to the upside if Broadcom can start to get strong and if the semiconductors can find a bid once again. So this is something I would watch. I would say watch the 211.11 and also look for that break and retest above 220 to really get an understanding and a confidence that we could get a hold and an upside continuation. The next one is the honorable mention that I am not in yet, but something I will show you and tell you what I'm waiting to take my entry. And then after this, we'll go over the last stock, and that's going to be the one that you guys probably know, and that is NVIDIA. But let's go ahead and talk about MRVL. This is another semiconductor name that I wanted to go ahead and go over today and sort of share with you why I think there is a possible opportunity here on the upside and on the potential gap. So let me go ahead and show you the gap first. Let's go ahead and show you this drawing set here, which includes the gap that we have. So let me go ahead and clean this up just 1 second and then zoom back in to that daily chart. So right here, guys, you can see MRVL, we had a major gap down right here from around $124 to $107. Now, if I zoom out on this chart, let me go out to the weekly chart, you guys can see that MRVL looks very similar. Let me go ahead and make a blank drawing set. Bear with me here. I'm going to make a blank drawing set and delete all these levels. We can see that MRVL is a very similar look to Broadcom. And what do I mean by that, right? Why is MRVL similar to Broadcom? Well, if we zoom in on this daily chart, we can see we had some major previous highs right around here, around that $94, $95 level. Also, you could even say it's up towards this 98. So anywhere between this 98 and around this 95, 94 level, I see previous highs, right? Right in here, you can see on this daily chart. Let me go ahead and share with you this once again, zoom out a little bit. You can see we had previous highs, and this previous high right here. We have a zone of previous highs, in my opinion, right in this 94 to 98 level, right? And on that gap down, we came right into that zone and very close, not quite at it yet, but very close to that 100 SMA. Now, MRVL held that level and started to push higher. Let me go ahead and now break down where you have been able to reclaim and why I think this is important. So if we go to this 4-hour chart, we can see MRVL, it did drop below these lows right here, right? We can see that low around $105. We did get a little drop below that, and I would call that maybe a little liquidity grab below that level, but we quickly reclaimed it, right? We can see right here, and I'll go ahead and zoom in now. We reclaimed that 105 area. We had those rejections right here, failed below it, but we have clearly reclaimed that 105 area. And so now that MRVL, in my opinion, is over this 105 level, there is an interest of whether this could become a new low that starts to build this back higher through the gap down that occurred on that DeepSeek news. So right here, we have these very clear lows at 105 and 105. I think you can very easily use that as a stop loss now to potentially look for that upside back, through that gap. You can now guide your trade using that 105 level. I think that is quite nice if you can sort of pick the right contract and understand that your game plan is to use that as a stop loss. Now, the reason I have not entered this trade yet is because I am waiting for one more level to break and confirm that we can hold above, and that is the $112 level. Right here, we have lows at 112, lows at 112, lows at 112, lows at 112. Right here, we can see it is starting to turn into a rejection. I would like to see MRVL use that 50 SMA, bounce over 112, and start to turn that into support. If I can see MRVL turn 112 back into new lows, that is where I would start to trade this long, targeting the gap fill. You could target 118, you could then target 122, and if I go back to the daily chart, we can see the gap fill fully closes up near that 122. So for now, I am not in MRVL, but I will be looking for that hold over 112 to see if this gap fill continuation can continue. If I can get one more confirmation right above that $112 level, something I'm definitely watching and I would continue to monitor over the coming days to weeks. Now, let's get into the last one, and that is NVIDIA. NVIDIA, the one that is probably the most interesting out of all of them. Let's go ahead and talk about my thesis here, and you guys know that I am long this right now. So if I go to this weekly chart on NVIDIA, the first thing that I am focused on is the weekly uptrend. You can see right here we have a very clear uptrend on NVIDIA since about February of 2024. That is the beginning of last year. We have been in a weekly uptrend all of 2024. Now, NVIDIA is not a stock that typically gaps down about 17%, right? We had a 17% drop, close to 20% drop. The largest drop by any stock ever, market cap-wise, was done on the back of DeepSeek news. I personally do not believe that that type of news should drop NVIDIA the most market cap wise of any stock in the history of the stock market. I think that there is much worse news out there that could happen to drop a stock like that and to that amount. Now, with that said, opportunity, I believe, is here, but it will only be available to the patient. It will not be available to the impatient. That is not something that's going to happen. It will never, an opportunity like this will never come around for someone that needs instant gratification. So, that being said, let's talk about what I think needs to happen. You need to see this 115 hold strong. That is a must. You cannot lose this 115. You cannot lose this uptrend. That is crucial. Now, if we go to the daily chart, we can see that that 115 level also aligns perfectly with the, not perfectly in terms of the level, but right around that 200 SMA. You are right near that 200 SMA on NVIDIA, and I believe on top of it being that 115 demand, which you guys can see from right here and right back here, on top of that 115 demand holding, alongside that uptrend, oh, that's an ugly line, alongside that uptrend right there, this confluence right down here, on top of that holding for now, I also see some very bullish daily candles. NVIDIA over the last 4 days has tried to sell off lower, but has failed to break below a major demand, and all 4 of these daily wicks have shown lower shadows and pushing back to the upside. All of them closing, besides the first, all of them closing back above the 200 SMA. Now, this is going to take time. This is not something that is going to happen overnight. This is not something that is going to work for someone that is impatient. I would recommend no less than April, May, June. That's the sweet spot in my opinion. April at the earliest, May, June, July, maybe even January 2026. And in my opinion, probably the best opportunity is just picking up some shares for your long-term portfolio. Now, let me go ahead and show you what needs to happen for NVIDIA to actually start working for short-term trading opportunities. We are going to need to see NVIDIA reclaim 130. That is a must. We need to get NVIDIA back over 130 for this to start to truly work. For now, we can see that these previous lows right here are turning into rejections. And for now, that is keeping NVIDIA, I think, somewhat subdued within this structure down here between 130 and 115. We need to get back over 130 if we can turn these previous lows right here into new lows right here on somewhat of a break and retest hold. That would be the ideal thing to look for to really get NVIDIA going through the gap back into 140 and possibly higher. We need to get the reclaim of 130, and until that happens, I would anticipate NVIDIA trades sideways and consolidates. With that said, that means you cannot take a Friday expiration contract or a next week contract and hope and pray that this breaks out. I would say you can try to get some good entry points on some in-the-money contracts with time and patience and sit on this until your stop loss breaks. For me, the stop loss being $115 per share. Now, the last disclaimer that I will go ahead and make here. I would recommend, if you are going to go for this, you do not watch the intraday action. The intraday action is pointless if you are in between 115 and under 130. Anything you watch in between this area is pointless, and it will be designed to get you out of the trade. If you continue to monitor this thing, you will get dizzy on a daily basis. Watch the daily candles, watch the 4-hour candles, place your stop loss. Don't get micromanagement. Don't micromanage this trade and let this play out. If you are a little bit less patient and you don't like the idea of holding onto this and sitting in drawdown, I would wait for us to reclaim 130 and then look to take your shot with a stop loss below it. That is probably the higher probability setup with less drawdown and less patience required. Those are the 4 stocks that I went ahead or the 3 stocks, NVIDIA, Broadcom, and GEV. Those are the 3 stocks that I went ahead and purchased on this recent dip, MRVL being one that I'm very interested in, and we shall see how these work out. Again, this is my analysis. Please to make your own analysis. Make sure you align with the analysis before you set up these trades. Possibly some great opportunity. I believe we're going to need some type of relief off the semiconductor sector to really get these going. And something I do want to quickly show you before we go ahead and close this out is what I believe you will need on the semiconductor sector to really get this to the upside. So right here is the semiconductor sector, the SMH, and what you're going to need, in my opinion, is a hold above this candle high. This candle high is 245.08. Above 245.08, you have nothing but a gap right here. Above 245.08 on the SMH, which you guys can see is exactly where we saw some rejections and closed at today, that is what we're going to need to see. If we can see the SMH build above that 245.08, that is where I think you will get your gap fill, and that is where I think all of the surrounding stocks that we just talked about today can start to work. So, best of luck out there, guys. I have taken these setups. We shall see how they play out. If you enjoyed today's video, press that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.